Hey everyone, welcome to the CxO Story by LinkCxO, where we go beyond titles and talks about the real decisions, trade offs, leadership journey behind them. I'm Aditya, Chief of Staff at LinkCxO, and I'm delighted to have Abhimanyu Rathi with us today. Abhimanyu, great to have you. Really looking forward to have a thoughtful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So let me start here. In your current role and phase of life, what are the one or two problems or priorities that are occupying most of your mind right now?
Two topmost priorities are saving the world. We as a world have 52 gigatons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. We need to reduce that or remove that as soon as possible. And the second priority is creating a team of people who really want to defeat climate change. So getting those passionate people on board. These are the top two priorities right now.
I mean, great. I mean, you're really working on something that is the need of the hour. So, I love to understand the inflection point. So, what has been the key moments or decisions that truly shaped your professional journey?
So I'm a chemical engineer and a postgraduate diploma holder in environmental law and policy. So academics was one. I was always motivated to create long-lasting societal impact. I started my career as a water purification scientist, creating alternatives to RO water purifiers. RO waste 3 liters of water for every liter purified. I created a system that doesn't waste water, doesn't require energy. Did a lot of philanthropic work also, women empowerment, created a hospital for people living in rural areas of Gujarat, and then moved to deploying capital through a venture builder based out of Goa. So I understood social impact, the power of creating impact, the power of innovations, and I had a degree in, like I said, engineering and law. And all of this culminated into creating the current company that I am leading, RenewCred, which is a digital infrastructure and data infrastructure for carbon markets.
Amazing. So, also, can you briefly tell us something that forced you to operate differently as a leader?
I've always felt that we as humans have the power to create long lasting innovation. There's a lot of problems out there that we can change, that we can mold, that we can create to help create better solutions to help our fellow humans. This started through the water purification story that I just spoke about. Then I created solar tractors. Then I moved to using e-waste valorization, basically using e-waste for substantial good. Then I got into policy and research. I also have a history of reading a edtech startup way back in 2008. So I was always driven by innovation. I have this like in Hindi you say kida of using innovation and business. So that's just kept the momentum going in my life, nothing else.
So, across your journey, as you rightly mentioned, multiple initiatives that you have taken. I myself have been into social impact, working for women empowerment, food for all, education for all. One thing I'd like to know, like, can you help us know multiple initiatives, a few stand out, right? And were your achievements that you believe created a disproportionate impact, and what made those hard? Was it people, ambiguity, or execution? And what did you learn there that you still carry forward?
So first one, going back again to the water purification story, we created what are called Vardhan water purifiers. These are now deployed in industries. This bring the water TDS apart from other things down by almost 95%. So in textile industry, in industries that heavily rely on water, this becomes a very important tool because it does it with very reduced carbon emissions with very less requirement of energy. Another initiative is what is called the Vardhan Hospital, which was in association with the government department called ESIC. This was in Surat. We were able to support about 5,000 patients, 3,000 of them during COVID, completely free of cost healthcare services. So I was the one who designed that, ran that as the chief administrative officer. Third initiative was while I was working with a venture fund called Build 3. We created the Build 3 Impact Accelerator. Still today serves a lot of startups through resources and capital. So all of these were scalable stories. Tech for sure. Again, I was able to the first startup that I did way back 17 years back when I had no idea what startups are. Scaled it to about 3,200 students, partnering with 23 universities. So I've enjoyed these, what I say, 0 to 10 journeys a lot. And that's the momentum I continue to do with RenewCred. Challenge always has been access to capital off the bat is not fluidly available in India. You have to be very good with your narrative, with your storytelling, with the idea, placing the idea, how it can be scalable. And as a founder, it's a journey. You only learn by going through these cycles. Second is operations is very heavily undermined. What makes or breaks a business is basically execution and operations. And third struggle always is getting those like-minded folks, as Gen Z call the vibe match, should happen. So getting people who are really passionate about building the core idea with what you as a founder are building, and are not just in that space because it sounds sexy. And this is a struggle we see in climate. It just sounds fun enough to work for, and that is why a lot of people want to jump into it. So operations, executing the idea, capital fundraise, and then creating the great team of people to work with. These are some both struggles and opportunities.
So there are a lot of things written about leadership. In reality, it's very conceptual. How do you personally think about leadership today, especially when you're dealing with ambiguity, pressure, and high stakes decision? And what have you, consciously unlearned as you have grown?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We are in the age of AI also, so a lot of leadership styles are changing. A few lessons that I have learned is that micromanagement never works. You need to find leaders, like a team full of such individuals will obviously win a World Cup, but the team here and there won't. So finding great people is very important. Don't micromanage. Don't have hierarchies also in this new age. Let people decide what they are good at. Select people for whom it's their ikigai to work with in the domain that you are building. So this was mostly on the selection of people, working with them, assigning them assignments that they really believe is within their core strike rate, not just because they might have a tangential skill set to execute that. Having good enough people who are great at groundwork and operations, people who understand the critical insights of building the business, just not theoretical insights. You can't build a business in just sitting in an AC room. That doesn't happen normally. You need an equal amount of strategic people as you need executionists. Strategy also, smart work obviously defeats pure hard work any given day. Another fin is diversity is very important. You need to have people across different skill sets, across different genders, to have the flow of idea within your company. So select good people, let them have ownership, let them be leaders in their own domain, and have a good diversity. These are three things that I will vouch for.
Amazing. So at senior level, decisions are really black and white, right? So how do you approach decision making when you don't have complete information?
Two things. One is we have a set of principles that we abide to. Something as basic as we will always be transparent, honest, we won't endorse corruption. But something as complex also as that 80% data is as good as 60% data, 100% data. Because of decisions, the speed of decision making also needs to be matching with what the company's vision is. And that brings me to the second point of having a lot of mental models, one of which I said 40 to 80% data is good. Second, I truly believe in intuition. Sometimes intuition works where strategy won't. Third mental model is if the and in extension of intuition, if the gut feeling is saying no, it really means no. A fourth mental model would be that the simplest idea, called the Occam's, the simplest narrative is probably the best one. So I go by a mix of mental ideas and the speed of decision making. That's the leadership.
And following up with the question, can you recall a decision that didn't go as planned, and what exactly it taught you?
A lot of decisions didn't go as planned. Some are product decisions. We believe that the market would need something. We end up developing something and then we forget we never asked the market to do it. So again, taking the product example of water purifiers, we built a system which was maybe aesthetically not the most pleasing enough, but was very functional. So my engineering brain said, let's make a functional product. We hit the market and realized aesthetics sometimes tends to be more important. So product ideas tend to be like that. Team building ideas also tend to be like that. You hire somebody believing that they will execute a particular department, but they were not fit for that. They were fit for something else. So leadership is all about learning from your failures, creating a mental model around that, and then executing it later. So a lot of things haven't worked.
So one thing you mentioned about building teams that actually deliver. So one consistent challenge across organizations is building team that don't just function but truly delivers. What in your experience separates high performing teams from the rest?
I think high performing teams generally are the ones who really don't differentiate between work as work and going back to a life that is not connected with work. And this becomes more severe when you talk about upper management at early stages of a business career. I feel for me, the lines between the work-life balance lines are very blurred. in the sense that even when I'm going back, and this might be controversial or counterintuitive to how people think about it, but even in my free time, I'm always thinking about how to create great products, how do I acquire customers, how do I create a more better feedback loop for the customers and for the company. So constantly thinking that, and then having the people also like that to think, who bring in a fresh breed of ideas, who bring a fresh breed of knowledge, who open up more networks for you. I think that's the core difference between a high performing team and maybe a mediocre performing team at the early stages. Early stages, I keep repeating, because once you've established a business, then you know what cycles work for you and you start compounding on that. The second thing that differs is let people select the work they enjoy even after you have hired them. So, for example, if you have hired somebody for, say, marketing, and tomorrow they, after a quarter, they say, "Hey, I'm not enjoying marketing. I want to be an accountant for the next quarter." Let them be, because people are not always on high energy. You won't always have the best people working for you. People will have their low times too. We just saw a World Cup where the captain and the core management backed a player called Abhishek, the opener, and they keep backing, and we know what happened in the finals. So backing your people also is far more important. So these are two of my core learnings.
So, if you had a one-liner, when you go look back, and what are some moments that significantly shape your perspective, not as a professional but as a leader?
I had this extremely good opportunity of creating a leadership team as young as when I was 16. That was the starting point. The second team point was where I was working on this hospital project. I don't have a degree in medical, but I was working with people who did have. Creating these cross-functional teams and bringing new ideas was very important for me. Third point was while I was running the venture builder, creating a new small team with young, exciting people, energetic people, trying to get these innovations out there from an operations point of view. Fourth point is now RenewCred, where we are a completely remote team. The core team comprises of 13 people across 7 cities. So working with a remote team has its own challenges, and then we work with about 93 scientists across 5 nations. So that's another challenge. So I think I've been constantly learning. Teams, people, culture. We just wrote a culture note also on what we believe RenewCred stands for. And this which brings me to a very important point, that culture plays a very strong role right from day zero. You need to really speak and speak it out in public of what exactly you stand for, what does the company stand for, how do you want the employees to evolve around that culture. And it also gives you a fair bit of idea what might be a good fit or bad fit, to the extent that today RenewCred is 2 years old, but we have had zero iteration. That is, nobody has left the company. Only in a couple of cases we had to request because of performance issues. So that's some learning.
I mean, that's so exciting to know, and that your experience are very unique. And for me, at least, working around 90 plus scientists across 5 nations, amazing. So we have talked about the past. Let's talk about the future now. Like looking ahead, what excites you the most about the next phase of your journey? And more broadly, what shift do you see in leadership or business that leaders should be preparing for?
So at RenewCred, we have this big, hairy, audacious goal. There's a gentleman called Jim Collins who writes a lot about creating great organizations. He talks about big, hairy, audacious goal. So our goal is 2 gigatons removal of CO2 from the atmosphere from our work, which would be about 4-5% of the current greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. So everything we do, we try to meet that North Star metric. Anything that we do within the company, that's our long-term goal. Our short-term goal is through RenewCred, execute 300 projects. So 300 projects getting carbon credits issued. That's our short-term goal. I think the next question you asked was around leadership evolving. I think the lines between what we call senior management, middle management, upper management, lower management, all of these are diluting. One of my gurus, or the person I read a lot, is Naval Ravikant, and Naval just posted that it's no longer about upper management or lower management, it's good with AI or bad with AI. But I would extend it good with technology or bad with technology. So those lines are blurring. Your experiences don't matter. What really matters is what are the critical insights and ideas you bring into the company. How do you make this world a better place to live in fundamentally? And then how do you acquire both value, knowledge and wealth in that order? Or I would say knowledge, value and wealth in that order. How do you acquire that? So all of that is happening. Experience is no longer just a criteria to be a leader. A leader also needs to learn a lot now. So you just can't be there because you know everything. Leadership has become like programming language. In every 4 years, everything starts afresh. So you have to learn a lot as a leader. You have to be silent, patient, and accept ideas and evaluate them on the face value rather than evaluating the person who brings in the ideas every time. So that sense of speed also needs to evolve as a leader. So yeah, these things I work.
Great. So you mentioned that the kind of environments you've operated in, where accesses to the right perspective can change outcome, if I've understood it correctly. How do you think platforms like LinkCxO can add value to CXOs, especially in enabling better decision making, peer learning, and meaningful conversation?
Yeah, I think platform like LinkCxOs are allowing leaders to know what other leaders are doing, what their ideas are, what their visions are about life. It's also allowing a lot of people and a lot of networks to come together. So if I read somebody's story and I feel motivated about it, I'm most likely to go on and send a message, hey, I'm doing this. We'd love to connect with you. So and it's a global world. The boundaries have diluted to an extent that you can talk to anybody at any point of time, and platforms like you allow that. So filtration of stories, bringing leaders closer, bringing visions closer, creating a fluid system of ideas to flow easily and seamlessly. Maybe with filtration, better filtration, that will also keep becoming better over time. I think this is what platform like LinkCxO are doing very well. So thank you so much for that.
Thanks to you for coming here. One question comes up in my mind. So we have talked about the industry, we have talked about leadership. So on a personal note, what do you think personally in your professional journey you would be aspiring? What would be your next steps? What would kind of roles, or what are the kind of leadership roles, if I precisely say, you'd be looking for?
That's a tough one. The only thing I eat, drink, sleep about is climate change. Domain is quite clear for me. I want to stick around innovations. One of the reasons I did RenewCred and rather than any other thing is, as a standard and registry in a voluntary carbon market, I'm exposed to multiple innovations and ideas. So if I'm starting my day with solar, by afternoon I'm doing biochar, by evening I'm talking about ARW, by night I'm talking about ARR, and I get to have talk to amazing individuals across these different sectors, try to absorb a lot of ideas from them, create these methodologies and standards that will calculate carbon credit, and also helps me stick with my wonderful technology team led by Yogendra Panchal and Kaushik Gupta. So I can work with them, talk to them, talk about technology, talk about ML, AI, all of these cool stuff. So maybe for the next 10-15 years, I would love to continue doing this. I know as a founder, at some time if the energy dies down, you have to take an exit. I might land in venture capital. I think that's the only progression I can see for myself later.
That's so good to see your passion towards your work, and that is evidently visible in the way you speak about your work.
Yeah.
It's really good to see. And one last question: if you had to distill your leadership journey into one single principle or mindset that has consistently worked for you, what it would be?
So far, so good. It's been a journey. I've met great individuals from different spheres of life. Uh, I've been in villages, I've been in towns, I've done a lot of groundwork. I think if I have to distill it in one or two words, it's been just wonderful stories. A lot of knowledge has come not from books or videos or audiobooks or all of that stuff. It's just come from stories and talking to people. And talking to people who really want to make a positive change, not just people who are networking for the sake of it, which also meant a lot of time I have to get out of my comfort zone. I have to do stuff that I was not looking forward to do. So, wonderful stories, connecting the dots, creating products, creating value for everybody, and then repeating that journey again and again. So, yeah.
So, Vimanyu, this has been genuinely an insightful conversation, a lot of depth and very actionable perspectives.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your journey with such honesty. And to everyone listening, if this resonated, do share it within your network. We'll continue bringing you conversation that matters on CxO Story by LinkCxO. Thank you, Vinny. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and all the very best to all the viewers.